I'm Rebecca Wheaton and I'm an architect at Powell Dobson Architects based in their Cardiff office. As a practice, we work across a range of sectors, from retail and leisure through to schools, further and higher education, healthcare and residential developments. I work as part of the education studio, focusing mainly on primary and secondary schools. We all experience architecture every day, whether it's the sanctuary of our homes, the functionality of shops and supermarkets, or the more stimulating environments of our schools and offices. Ultimately, though, I believe that all buildings have the potential to be inspiring. Towns and cities are largely defined by their heritage and culture, and their architecture is a manifestation of this. Good architecture can transform your experience of a place. A city like Cardiff is bursting with wonderful examples of historic and contemporary architecture alike, which make it a vibrant and exciting city to experience and live in. I've included a few photos here of our Cardiff office. You can see that the majority of our work is computer-based using various programs and 3D modelling software such as Revit. However, drawing boards haven't been completely replaced, and all of our schemes start as initial concept sketches. These ideas are often modelled as card models or rendered as CGI images to communicate and explore the designs as we develop them. Our in-house design teams consist of architects, architectural technologists, interior designers and 3D visualisers, all of whom contribute to the design process on every scheme. As architects, we are fortunate to be involved with most of our projects from initial conception, from the very early stages of working with a client to help create the brief, developing the design alongside the design team, to supporting the contractor during the on-site construction works. This transition means that our role can be varied, challenging and exciting. No two projects are ever the same. Most of us are familiar with the typical traditional Victorian school buildings of our local areas. But if the only limit was your imagination, what could a school building look like? If we draw on examples from around the world, you can see that whether your supporting structure is a giant yellow giraffe, your playground is on the roof, or you're replacing stairs with climbing walls and slides. The key to good design is enabling people to better interact with the buildings that they use, creating opportunities within those buildings and their surrounding spaces. Eastern Community Campus in Cardiff is one of our recent school projects. We started working with Cardiff County Council and Wilmot Dixon Construction on this project in 2015. The project is a secondary school with post-16 provision and community facilities. The brief from the client was to provide a stimulating learning environment for flexible teaching to support both individual and collaborative learning opportunities. They wanted a building to be welcoming for pupils and part of the wider community, and they wanted a building that could showcase a new innovation hub. So what does that look like? The client already had a site for the new school, and we started by looking at where a new building would be best positioned on the site and evaluated a number of options for external social areas and sports pitches around it. Working with the client and contractor team, and always with an eye on the project budget, we helped to develop the brief for the new school building. This was based on the specific curriculum of the school, the number of classrooms and teaching spaces required, and the sports provision needed. In addition to all of this, we also consulted with staff and pupils, the wider community, and the children who would be likely to attend the school in the future to better understand what a successful learning environment meant to them. The consultant team involved in developing the design for Easton High School consisted of structural and civil engineers, building services engineers, landscape architects, ecologists, acousticians and planning consultants. As architects, we had a central role in coordinating the input from the wider design team. Working with the support of the contractor and the design team, the design was developed, tested and progressed. The finalised building is rectangular in form with a continuous ribbon of accommodation around the external edge. This maximised opportunities for natural daylight and ventilation to the classrooms. The tall sports hall is expressed as a standalone single-storey form on the public elevation to Trowbridge Road and shields the view towards the service yard and the delivery areas behind. The internal layout of the school is broken up by 3 large double-height voids. The first of these contains the reception area and a large social space with access to sports facilities. The second forms the school's main dining facility, and the final double-height space houses the library, learning resource and ICT teaching provision over 2 floors. These spaces help break up the overall mass of the building, inject life into the school, and allow pupils to easily locate themselves and find their way around. The building form is articulated in 2 masses, the main building, which is consistently 2 stories, and the second mass being the smaller sports hall. The majority of the building's elevations, which contain teaching accommodation, are treated simply in brick. Glazed elements create regular and random patterns as the glazed fenestration changed to reflect the function of the rooms in which they occur. The art department at first floor is expressed as a rendered cantilevered form which breaks up this facade and expresses a specific function and spatial requirements. The principal elevation presented at Trowbridge Road is elaborated through a series of architectural interventions which express the community use, celebrate the key technical teaching area, and announce the main school entrance. The resulting composition is intended to be timeless, enduring, welcoming, sophisticated and inspirational. The public-facing accommodations such as a gym and activity studio are located on the main frontage and adjacent to the main entrance to increase awareness of the facilities and encourage its use by the community. Glazed oriel windows and corner windows give oblique views into the spaces and announce the entrance. The elevational treatment, with its transparency and celebration of its purpose, looks to create a sophisticated architectural treatment far removed from the institutional school buildings of previous generations. As you can see, every aspect of the building is designed in detail and coordinated amongst the team, down to the locations of every light switch and the layout of the furniture. These designs are modelled in 3D for discussion and presentation purposes. Once the client and the team have settled on a finalised design which meets both the brief and the budget, the scheme can be submitted for planning approval.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hello, my name is Andrew Beadle and I am also an architect at Powell Dobson. I was the architect responsible for taking Easton High School through its technical and construction stages. And in the remaining presentation, I'll talk you through the stages of construction and the role of the architect during the build. From the early design of the building, a complex architectural 3D model was created to reflect the final building form. This model was then combined with similar structural and building services models to simulate the final building upon completion. By fully designing the building in 3 dimensions, any problems that may happen during construction can be identified and addressed. And working with a 3D model is a lot more fun than having to hand draw the old-fashioned way in 2 dimensions. Easton High School is constructed using a steel frame structural design. Cambria Consulting, the structural engineers for the project, worked from the architectural model to position a building skeleton of columns and beams that sit on concrete foundations in the ground. Cambria created their own 3-dimensional model, which you can see represented in the top 2 images. From this, the steel fabricator was able to produce his own fabrication drawings from which to cut the steel and prepare the connections off-site ready for delivery. As architects, we are responsible for checking that the steel frame column and beam positions are correct, because we have overall responsibility for making sure that everything fits together on site. When the builder has cleared and secured the site, the first thing to be put in place are the foundations and steel frame structure. As architect, it is always a fantastic feeling seeing the shape of the building appear in front of your eyes as a physical object. With the structure complete, the next step is to make the building weathertight to enable the builder to work inside safely. As architect, we are responsible for choosing the materials that enclose the building and also designing how those materials come together. All of our drawings are created from a 3-dimensional model with text and detail overlaid. Our architectural information is then sent to specialists who work for the builder. They order the materials and employ specialist workmen to install them to our drawings. The materials chosen by the architect are attached to the steel frame in different ways to form the building envelope. Some materials like the roof and cladding are installed quickly, while some materials like the brickwork take a long time to complete. Typically, it takes between 6 months to a year from starting on site for the envelope to be complete. During this time, the architect has to be ready to answer any queries raised by the builder and to help resolve any problems that happen during the construction. As well as thinking of the building as an object, it is also important to think about the spaces we create inside the building. Here you can see a very early visualisation of the main entrance and social space at Easton High School. And you can compare it with a photo of the same space upon completion. You can see that they are quite similar. That's one of the best parts of being an architect, the ability to imagine something and then bring it into reality. Here you can also see all of the stages in between the design and completion of the building. The completion of the steel frame skeleton gives an idea of scale and helps to visualise the space on site. The construction of the internal walls and partitions give a clear definition of the space. And finally, the selection of finishes and lighting brings the atmosphere of the space to life. After all of the hard work designing and constructing the building, nothing brings it to life as much as the people who use it. Seeing other people enjoying something that you have designed and worked hard on for several years is a fantastic feeling as an architect. I hope that this presentation has given you a good insight into the role of the architect. I will leave you with the fly-through that we created when designing Easton High School to help secure planning approval. Who knows, maybe one day you'll be designing buildings of your own. Diolch yn fawr.